Chapter 81, Roy's Decision. Here's the beast's soul crystal that I'm willing to trade for that man. You are a merchant, so I'm sure that you can see its value. Alaric showed the crystal to Roy. Roy was stunned. Can I take a look at it? Sure. Alaric nodded and handed him the crystal. Although giving it to him was quite risky, he could sense that Henry was already nearby. If Roy would do something foolish, he wouldn't hesitate to cut him with his sword. Roy carefully took the beast's soul crystal. He then used a magnifying glass to examine the surface of the crystal. He wasn't a warrior, so he could only use another method to identify its authenticity. From the weight, this should be the beast's soul crystal of a powerful fatal-grade monster. The texture is just right and its gloss is smooth. This is an authentic beast's soul crystal. Roy was tempted to take it away, but he felt that something bad would happen if he were to take it. He took a deep breath and returned the crystal to the young warrior. This is indeed a real beast soul crystal. Can you tell me from what kind of monster did you get it from? He probed. Alaric smiled and responded, We encountered a scaled hyena pack yesterday and we got this from the leader of the pack. Roy rubbed his chin thoughtfully. A scaled hyena pack is mostly composed of more than 50 members, sometimes even 100 for a larger pack. Is this guy telling me that they defeated that many monsters with only 3 of them? Unless there are more of them. Thinking about this, Roy narrowed his eyes. Truthfully, he had no plans to make a deal with this young warriors group. He only made an offer to see if they had some money with them. His real objective was to rob them, but he had to temporarily put the idea aside since they might have more people lurking around. Please give me a moment to think about it, sir. I'll also talk with my companions regarding your offer. Roy cupped his fists at the young warrior. Sure, Alaric nodded indifferently. Roy turned around and walked towards the captain of his escort warriors. Sir Gavin, can you sense the presence of other warriors nearby other than those people? Roy asked in a whispering voice. Gavin's expression was solemn. I can sense the presence of a powerful warrior hidden behind the trees over there. I don't know that person's exact level, but there is a high chance that this warrior is an elite knight like me. An elite knight? Roy raised his eyebrows in surprise. Luckily, he didn't do anything stupid or something bad would have happened. If a battle happens, can your group handle them? Roy didn't want to give up just yet. Gavin frowned. Other than the person hiding, that old swordsman is also not your average knight. His mana is solid and it might take 3 of my knights to take him down. Moreover, that young knight is not a pushover either. He should be as powerful as that old swordsman. Most importantly, the person whose face is covered has a weird mana fluctuation. It's not similar to the mana that we warriors possess. Roy didn't expect to hear this from him. What made him even more bothered was what Gavin said about the person whose face was covered with cloth. Don't tell me that person is a beast soul warrior. Gavin didn't express it directly, but Roy understood the meaning behind his words. A powerful beast soul warrior could effortlessly kill a group of knights. Everyone knows how powerful they were. Just the thought of it made Roy feel terrified. After almost 5 minutes of hesitation, Roy decided to abandon his initial plan. I might as well make money and connections here. If that person is indeed a beast soul warrior, then I won't lose out on this deal. After making a decision, Roy nervously approached Alaric's group. Sir, I have made a decision. The merchant beamed. Oh, let's hear your answer. Alaric nodded. I am willing to accept your offer. Roy smiled and pointed at Fredrin. That man in exchange for your beast soul crystal. In addition, I will also give you 2 more slaves as a token of my goodwill. What do you think, sir? Hearing this, Alaric's lips curved upwards. I like your straightforwardness, Sir Roy. Can I choose the 2 additional slaves? What made this guy eager to close this deal? Alaric wondered. Of course. Please feel free to choose anyone you like. Roy laughed heartily. The slaves could hear their conversation since they didn't bother to lower their voices. At this moment, Fredrin was worried that he would be separated from his wife. He wanted to break the chains that bound him, but he was unable to destroy them. Seeing his attempts to escape, Gavin and a few warriors immediately restrained him. "What's going on?" Alaric frowned when he saw the commotion. "There seems to be a minor problem, sir, but don't worry, the people I brought are professionals. They know how to deal with this kind of situation." Roy chuckled awkwardly. "Just give me a moment." Roy turned around and hurried over to Fredrin. "Hey, stop. I will punish your wife and your child if you do something foolish," the fat merchant muttered angrily. This guy actually embarrassed him in front of his clients. Fredrin stopped struggling when he heard those words, but his eyes were burning with fury. "Can you say those words if I wasn't in chains?" His voice was cold and deep like the abyss. Roy was about to slap him when he felt a tap on his shoulder. "HM." When he saw that it was the young warrior, his gaze softened. "Sir, I was about to discipline this stubborn slave. I apologize for making you see this." Alaric shook his head. "It's fine. Let me talk to this man." Roy raised an eyebrow, but he still agreed. "All right, but you need to be careful." Alaric nodded calmly. Chapter 82, Buying 3 Slaves for 1 Beast Soul Crystal. After Roy left, Alaric turned his head to Fredrin. "My name is Alaric. What's your name?" Fredrin's eyes seemed like they could spurt fire from how he was staring at him, but Alaric remained unperturbed. Realizing that he had no intention to respond, Alaric added, "I know what you are worried about. That pregnant woman is your wife, right?" Hearing this, Fredrin finally reacted. "If you touch her, I'll kill you," he muttered while breathing heavily. Alaric smiled and shook his head. "I didn't speak with you to provoke you. I want to help you." Fredrin narrowed his eyes. "What do you want?" "The merchant told me that I could take 2 additional slaves with me." "Do you know what that means?" Alaric felt a bit guilty for using this man's feelings, but Fredrin was someone that he truly needed to complete his plan. If he could get this man to serve him, he would have a future transcendent knight. An expert at that level would be a huge help to his plan to stop this civil war from happening. Fredrin hesitated. He understood the implications of his words. He looked at his pregnant wife whose limbs were bound by chains. She had small wounds on her skin. Her clothes were tattered and full of dirt. Seeing her like this made him feel like he was being torn apart. "I will follow you if you set my wife free." Fredrin stared deeply at the young knight. Alaric was taken aback. "Don't you want to be with her?" "I want to be with her, and it hurts me to even think about being separated from her. But what hurts me more is seeing her live under such terrible conditions." Fredrin lowered his head. "Sigh, what a loving husband. Why don't you just live with your wife?" "I don't plan to take you back as slaves." "Huh? What do you mean?" Fredrin couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're an elite knight. You can work as a warrior for our household instead. As for your wife, she can work as a cook or a gardener. If you don't like that, I'll let you choose where your wife can work." Alaric's words made him dumbfounded. Are you telling the truth?" Fredrin was agitated. This could be the opportunity that he was praying for, but it was too good to be true. Alaric smiled and nodded his head. "Of course. I'm a follower of Ryu. You can trust me." He took out a sun necklace that symbolized a benevolent god. "If my words are untrue, then may my soul turn into an evil spirit and wander hell for all eternity." Fredrin was stunned by his oath. Even the most faithful believers of Ryu would never dare to utter such words. "Since you are willing to say those words, I'll trust you." Fredrin took a deep breath and muttered, "My name is Fredrin Steelheart. I'm yours to command, sir." "Good. Just wait for a bit." Alaric tapped the man's shoulder. "Yes, sir." After talking with Fredrin, Alaric approached the fat merchant and gave him the beast soul crystal. "I have decided which slaves to take with me." "Great. Just tell which of them you are taking and I give them to you." Roy couldn't conceal the excitement on his face when he took the crystal. "I want that woman." Alaric pointed at Fredrin's wife. This made Roy feel a bit troubled, but he still accepted his choice. The elite knight must have spoken with him about it. TSK. Too bad. That pregnant lady could have fetched me a decent price. And the last one I'm taking is that man over there. Alaric pointed at the man who was introduced by Roy as one of the best hunters in his village. Good choices, sir. Just give me a second. I'll get them for you. Roy sent a signal to his servants. A moment later, Fredrin and the 2 additional slaves he had chosen were separated from the rest of the slaves. Sir, here are your goods, Roy laughed as he presented the 3 goods to Alaric. I enjoyed doing business with you, sir. The merchant extended his hand while beaming at him. Alaric didn't want to shake his hand, but he still did it for the sake of finalizing the deal. Likewise, he responded flatly. If you want to do business with me again, you can find me in Hyro. Just look for Roy's Merchant Group. I have some fame in the city, so the residents will give you the right directions. Roy didn't want to cut off this connection here since he felt that the young warrior was no ordinary person. After all, not just anyone could employ the service of a beast soul warrior. All right, I will remember it. Alaric nodded. By the way, where are you headed to, sir? If we are heading in the same direction, we can just go together. It will be safer for us to move in a larger group, Roy suggested. It's all right. We can take care of ourselves, but thank you for the offer. Alaric politely declined. I see. What a pity. Roy tried to prolong their conversation, but Alaric didn't seem to be keen on chatting with him. The merchant sensed his disinterest, so he didn't insist on keeping the young warrior for long. After exchanging goodbyes, Roy and the merchant group finally left. Alaric watched them leave with a calm look on his face. Only when they disappeared from his line of sight did he lower his guard. They're finally gone, Arthur muttered. Henry, who was hiding behind a nearby tree, also revealed himself. The guy wearing a fur coat detected my presence. We should leave soon, my lord. He won't be an easy opponent. The old man spoke in a serious tone. Alaric waved his hand. There's nothing to worrying. If they attack us, they will be the ones in trouble. He chuckled. H.M. Henry stared at him with a perplexed look. Follow me. I'll introduce you guys to someone. Alaric smiled as he tapped the old man's shoulder. Chapter 83. To the Fortress City. Alaric beckoned to Fredrin and the other 2. Come here. We need to get those things off of you guys. When they heard his words, they were flabbergasted. Looking at their stunned faces, Alaric chuckled. Stop dawdling and come here. Fredrin nodded to his wife and whispered, We can trust him. His wife hesitated for a moment, but she still chose to listen to her husband. All right. She walked nervously towards Alaric and bowed to him. Greetings, sir. Alaric nodded to acknowledge her greeting. What's your name? My name is Elaine, sir. She responded without daring to look at him in the eye. Alaric used the key given by Roy to remove the locks on her chains. Clang! As soon as the chains were removed, Elaine felt like she could finally breathe again. Thank you, sir. Alaric beckoned to the man standing beside Fredrin. What's your name? The former hunter was a bit nervous. He didn't know what kind of person his new owner was. His only hope was that he would be treated well. My name is Mark, sir. Not bad. You managed to become a knight apprentice. Did you receive formal training from someone? Alaric asked while observing the man's expression. I live in a small village, sir. We were only taught how to hunt. As for knight training, Mark shook his head. Oh, he managed to become a knight apprentice without formal training. He couldn't sense any falsehoods in his words, so it was most likely true. Do you want to become a knight? Alaric asked with a smile. Hearing this, Mark widened his eyes. Absolutely. That's my long-time wish, sir. Alaric grinned at his enthusiastic response. All right. If you're willing to follow me, I will have someone train you to become a knight. Without hesitation, Mark kneeled on one knee and muttered, I'm willing to follow you, sir. Alaric tapped the man's shoulder and said, Get up. There's no need for you to kneel before me. Let's get those chains removed first. Click. A clicking sound echoed as soon as the key was inserted into the keyhole. After having his chains removed, Mark felt light as a feather. Unknowingly, tears streamed down his cheeks as emotions welled up in his heart. Finally, it was Fredrin's turn. Henry, who was standing behind Alaric, stared intently at this beggar-looking man. If Fredrin revealed a trace of hostility, he was ready to pull out his sword. On the other hand, Alaric remained calm. He knew Fredrin's personality very well. He was a man who would never break his promise. That was the kind of person Fredrin was. "I will do as I had promised." "I will follow you, sir," Fredrin solemnly uttered. Alaric nodded and smiled faintly. "Let's get this over with so we can get something to eat." He glanced at the chains tied to Fredrin's limbs. They really used mithril chains to restrain him. Mithril was a rare metal that can only be found deep into the earth. Only a transcendent knight can forge something using this material. That was how durable it was. After his chains were removed, Fredrin bowed to Alaric. "Thank you, sir." Alaric waved his hand. "You don't have to thank me. Now go to your wife." "I know you're eager to hold her," he chuckled. Fredrin cupped his fists and jumped to his wife. The couple hugged each other and exchanged a deep kiss. Alaric looked away and shook his head. "Let's do the introductions later." "Leave them be for now." He tapped Henry's shoulder. The old man was still worried. "My lord, are you sure about setting that man free? He is an elite knight, a powerful one at that," he whispered. He could sense it just by looking at Fredrin. "You can rest assured. I know what kind of person he is." "Trust me on this," Alaric muttered reassuringly. "All right, but I'll keep an eye on him just to make sure," Henry responded cautiously. An hour later, they gathered for their meal. The atmosphere was a bit awkward with the presence of 3 more people in the group. "You guys should get to know each other since you will be colleagues soon." Alaric broke the silence. Upon hearing his words, everyone stopped what they were doing, glanced at each other, and exchanged friendly nods. Alaric didn't push them. It would take some time for them to learn how to trust each other. "Give this to your wife. She needs to eat more meat for the child in her belly," Alaric said as he handed a bowl of boar meat soup to Fredrin. The latter sent him a grateful look before he gave the bowl to his wife. Elaine bowed to Alaric. "Thank you, sir. Since you guys will be serving me from now on, allow me to reintroduce myself." Alaric scanned the 3 former slaves. "My name is Alaric Silvasad, the heir of House Silvasad. Starting today, you are no longer slaves, but my people." The 3 were stunned. They thought that he was just a rich young warrior. It turned out that he was actually the son of a noble. "Greetings, my lord." They stood up simultaneously and bowed to him. "Relax. There's no need to be nervous." Although he tried to make them feel comfortable, the 3 became more restrained after knowing his identity. After eating their meal, Alaric told them about their destination. "We are heading to the Enchanted Woodlands." Looking at their shocked faces, Alaric continued. "I know that it's dangerous, especially for Elaine, so there's no need for the 3 of you to follow us." He grabbed a stick and drew a box on the snow. "There is a fortress city close to the Enchanted Woodlands. The 3 of you will stay there and wait for us." "My lord, I'm willing to go with you to the Enchanted Woodlands." Mark expressed his desire to go with them. However, "No," Alaric shook his head. "It's too dangerous for you to be there." "I'm sure you are aware of the dangers within that forest." Mark nodded apprehensively. Almost everyone in the Empire knew what kind of creatures resided within the Enchanted Woodlands. "You guys get ready. We will head out at once." Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 3 days slipped by, and on the afternoon of the 4th of January, the group finally arrived at the fortress city called Turtle Fort. It got its name from the turtle-like forts that surrounded the city. This fortress city was Estania's first line of defense against the monsters that come from the Enchanted Woodlands. It also boasted a huge number of warriors who were ready to protect the Empire's borders. At this moment, the group had just passed by the heavily fortified gates. The huge ballistas sitting at the top of the walls made them feel safe and secure. They had to constantly keep a lookout when they were traveling outside. Now, they felt that they could finally rest easy. The group traveled for another hour to find a suitable inn. They didn't choose a famous establishment and selected a relatively unknown place. This was to keep their identities hidden. At the inn's dining hall, the group gathered for an afternoon snack. "We should get some rest tonight and resume our journey tomorrow," Alaric said while looking at Ivana. Her face was still covered with only her eyes and mouth visible. Ivana nodded. "I'll listen to you." She was excited to return to her home. She has been gone for a long time and she missed her family and friends. Just a little bit more, she muttered in her heart. She was grateful to Alaric and the rest of the group who came to accompany her, especially Alaric. If it weren't for him, she might have frozen to death a long time ago. Thinking about this, she looked at his side profile, her gaze softening. As if sensing her eyes, Alaric turned his head. "Why are you looking at me like that?" He raised his head and chuckled. "Thank you. I wouldn't have gotten this far on my own," the elf responded while staring straight into his eyes. Alaric almost fell into a trance. He quickly looked away and muttered, "That's what friends do." Friends. Ivana's lips curved upwards. "That's right. I have a human friend now." Alaric was the first human she had fully accepted as a friend. Sensing the unusual atmosphere between the two, the others could only pretend like they were statues. Alaric realized what was happening and immediately cleared his throat. "Ahem. You don't need to feel embarrassed, my lord." Henry tapped his back and sent him a knowing glance. Alaric ignored his teasing glance and opened the cyan screen to check his progress. Alaric Silvasud 90 XP, 440 for 500ths. Potential B. Traits: horseback riding C, swordsmanship SSS, close combat C, archery F, hunting E, tracking F, sixth sense F. Strength 100, stamina 34 plus, agility 43 plus, vitality 27 plus, endurance 42 plus, mana 48 plus, battle points 3,140, stat points 47. Requirements for next advancement: 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. I still have a long way to go. Chapter 84. Using the stat points I saved up to increase my agility. The next day. Before leaving the city, they bought a horse for Ivana to increase their travel speed. Looking at the dark clouds that hung above the horizon, Alaric clicked his tongue. "It seems like we have run out of luck." Another snowstorm was approaching, and from the vast cluster of clouds, it looked like it would be more severe than the most recent one. The faces of the two old warriors turned serious upon seeing the gloomy weather. The enchanted woodlands was more than 300 miles away from Turtle Fort. Normally, it would have taken them less than 10 hours to get there, but because the land was covered in snow, they would need to slow down and be careful on the road. If they moved carelessly, they might fall into a pit or encounter some venomous creatures. As usual, Henry took the lead in navigating the road. He cautiously eyed the surroundings, ensuring that no danger was present. In the next few hours, the group managed to travel 50 miles without getting into an accident, but things took a turn when they reached a 90-mile distance. They saw a large group of goblins hunting a herd of iron-tail buffaloes. The sharp shrieks of the goblins and the furious roar of the iron-tail buffaloes resonated in the air. There were more iron-tail buffaloes, but they were helpless against the aggressive goblins. "My lord, we have an issue here. There are goblins." Before Henry could give a report, he saw Alaric zooming past him on his horse. "Her! My lord! What are you doing?" Henry widened his eyes when he saw Alaric charging towards the goblins with his swords unsheathed. After a moment of surprise, Henry shot a glance at Arthur and said, "Stay here and protect Lady Ivana. I will go and support Lord Alaric." Without waiting for Arthur's response, Henry squeezed his legs and urged his horse to rush forward. Meanwhile, Ivana sent Arthur a confused look and asked, "What's happening? Why did Alaric?" Arthur was similarly baffled. "I have no idea, my lady." He shook his head with a bitter smile. At this moment, Alaric had already attacked the nearest goblin. chopping off its head with a single swipe of his sword. Swoosh! Die, you goblins! He shouted with a crazed look in his eyes. Underscore. Mission: kill the Goblin Chieftain. Rewards: 150 battle points, 15 stat points. Random trait upgrade card by 1. Penalty for failure: 800 battle points, 5 EXP. Underscore. Even without this mission, he would still attack these goblins. The mission only gave him one more reason to attack them. Subsequently, some goblins turned around and lunged at him, brandishing their weapons furiously. Ike! 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 Their strange shrieking sounds drifted into Alaric's ears, making him even more annoyed. Shut the hell up, you filthy creatures! He roared. Swoosh! 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 All the goblins that attacked him were cut into pieces, and their mangled bodies fell into the snow-filled land. Seeing the death of their brethren, the few hobgoblins leading the group became furious. They abandoned the iron-tail buffaloes and changed their target. 1, 2, 3, HM. 5 hobgoblins in total. Alaric narrowed his eyes and his face suddenly turned serious. I have 48 stab points now, including the one I got from this morning's daily mission. I'll use everything to increase my speed. Thinking about this, Alaric didn't even hesitate. Stat points: 48, 0. Agility: 43 greater than 91. Alaric sensed a huge change in his body. His swords felt lighter in his hands and the monsters in front of him seemed to have become slower. With my current speed, riding on my horse will only slow me down. After assessing the situation, Alaric jumped off his horse and rushed towards the enemies. He moves so fast that he left the winged horse in the dust. When the monsters were within his range, he released a flurry of slashes, cutting down everything that blocked his path. Swoosh! 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 No goblins could touch him. Even the powerful hobgoblins fell under his sword. In the next moment, he had already killed half of the goblin warriors. Henry, who was about to support him, pulled the reins of his horse and watched the scene in utter disbelief. What in the bloody hell is this? It was a total carnage. The goblins and hobgoblins died one after another. Was he always this fast? Henry's mouth went agape upon witnessing Alaric's lightning-fast sword strikes. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Henry turned his head and saw a muscular goblin holding a massive hammer made of wood. A goblin chieftain. My lord, be careful. There's a goblin chi. Huh? Henry's mouth twitched all of a sudden. Instead of retreating, Alaric actually charged at the goblin chieftain. I need to help him. Henry squeezed his legs and pulled his sword. I'm coming, my lord, he shouted. At that moment, Alaric and the goblin chieftain had clashed. Bang! The massive hammer struck the ground and created a large pit. However, it was unable to hit Alaric. Before it could touch him, he turned his body and riposted, pushing his swords into the abdomen of the creature. KSHHKK. KSHHKK. The goblin chieftain stared at the tiny human in front of it with its eyes wide open. Alaric pulled his swords, drawing a spray of blood in the air. The goblin chieftain staggered after being stabbed deeply. Rah-rah! It roared and smashed its hammer towards Alaric, intending to crush him into a pulp. However, with a simple footwork, Alaric nimbly dodged the destructive blow. Bang! Another pit was made after the massive hammer struck the ground. While it was still in the process of lifting its hammer, Alaric took the opportunity to land a few more hits. This time, he stabbed the tendons on its legs, making it sway and fall awkwardly on the ground. Thud! As soon as it fell, Alaric stabbed its head with his sword. Die! The monster died on the spot with its eyes staring wide at him. It's weaker than the one we fought in the evergreen forest, Alaric thought while pulling his sword from its forehead. My lord! Alaric turned his head and nodded to Henry. Sir Henry, please help me check the bodies of those hobgoblins. See if we can find some beast soul crystals from them, he instructed in a calm voice. Henry took a deep breath. He was still processing what he had witnessed. Just how fast is he progressing? Yes, my lord, the old man responded with a blank look. Alaric moved his gaze back to the goblin chieftain's corpse and made a cut on its chest. He then pushed his hand inside to see if it had a beast soul crystal. Soon, he felt a round object hidden within its internal organs. Alaric pulled it out from the corpse, revealing a small green-colored crystal with splashes of brown. Its color was way more unique compared to the beast's soul crystal from the other goblin chieftain. What an interesting combination of colors! Alaric wiped off the blood on the crystal using his clothes before putting it inside his leather pouch. With the death of the goblin chieftain, the remaining goblins and hobgoblins retreated. Alaric didn't chase them since his target was only the goblin chieftain. Underscore. Mission complete. Rewards: 150 battle points, 15 stat points. Random trait upgrade card by 1. Underscore. Do you want to use the random trait upgrade card? Yes, no. Alaric glanced at the card that appeared in his hand. He had already received something like this before, so he knew what it was used for. Alaric pressed yes. Congratulations! Your trait, Tracking F, has been upgraded to Tracking E. A new set of information flooded his mind in that instant. From the footprints of specific animals, their behaviors, and many other aspects related to tracking were incorporated into Alaric's mind. So tracking had these many different elements. The method I learned when I was a kid is nothing compared to this. This will be useful when hunting down enemies. He chuckled. He then focused his attention on the progress in his stats. He had gotten 150 battle points and 15 stat points. I should push my agility to 100 and distribute the remaining points to my stamina. Thinking about this, Alaric immediately made the adjustments. Alaric Silvasud 90 XP. 440 for 500ths. Potential B. Traits: Horseback Riding C, Swordsmanship SSS, Close Combat C, Archery F, Hunting E, Tracking E, Sixth Sense F. Strength 100. Stamina 40+. Agility 100. Vitality 27+. Endurance 42+. Mana 48+. Battle points 3,290. Stat points 0. Requirements for next advancement: 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. He had already maxed out 2 of his attributes, and it made him feel satisfied. My lord, I only found 2 beast soul crystals from the hobgoblins' corpses. Henry's voice drifted into his ears while he was looking at the cyan screen. The old man handed him the 2 crystals he had found. The harvest this time is decent, Alaric thought after getting the 2 beast soul crystals from him. Chapter 85. Alaric leads the way. Alaric looked at the monster corpses around them and felt a bit regretful that they couldn't bring them all to be sold. We should leave now. The smell of blood here will attract more monsters. There was no choice. They could only abandon the corpses. Henry only collected some of the iron-tail buffalo meat to be used for their trip. While he was putting in the meat he had gathered inside his leather bag, he noticed that some of the iron-tail buffaloes were looking at him with unkind gazes. The old elite knight stomped his foot and scared them with his aura. When the iron-tail buffaloes sensed his overwhelming aura, they immediately fled in the opposite direction. At this moment, Alaric detected the presence of more monsters in the distance. We need to go. Some monsters are already on their way here. Hearing his stern voice, everyone nodded. After carefully checking their belongings, the group made a detour to avoid the monsters who were heading to the corpses. Suddenly, crackle, crackle. Alaric looked up and saw flashes of lightning in the midst of the dark clouds. We need to hurry up. He squeezed his legs harder to convey his instructions to the horse. Meanwhile, the others also commanded their horses to move faster. Facing a snowstorm at their current location wasn't ideal. There were no markings or landmarks, so it would be difficult to navigate the road once their visibility was reduced. Along the way, they encountered some monsters, but they didn't trigger a mission, so Alaric decided to ignore them. Several hours passed by in the blink of an eye. The group was about to reach the halfway mark, but snow started falling, so they decided to find a safe place to camp. Forcing their way in the middle of a snowstorm would be a terrible idea since there was a high chance of them getting lost. "My lord, it seems like there are no caves nearby," Henry reported with a grave look. A cave was the best place to camp during snowstorms since they could shield themselves from the cold. Unfortunately, there were only trees nearby. There wasn't even a mountain or a hill. Alaric scanned the surroundings and furrowed his eyebrows. "Find a large tree and cut a space enough to fit all of us," he instructed. Hearing this, Henry nodded. He had also thought of this as his backup plan. "Yes, my lord." After looking around for almost an hour, they finally found a big tree. Henry used his sword to cut a big chunk on its trunk. He also cleaned the space inside and made it suitable for them to rest. "What about the horses?" Ivana asked. There wasn't enough space for the horses to go in, and this made her worried. Both the old warriors glanced at her and awkwardly scratched their heads, unable to utter a response. Seeing this, Alaric opened his mouth to save the old men from the awkward situation. "We have no choice. We can only let them go." "But they might freeze to death," Ivana frowned. She couldn't bring herself to abandon the horses. "I understand your concern, Ivana, but we have no time to look for a suitable place for them." "Letting them go is the best option," Alaric calmly replied. His main priority was to keep everyone safe. As for the horses, although it was regretful, there was no choice. Ivana was silent for a moment. She looked away from him, stroked the head of her horse, and muttered, "I'm sorry." By evening, the snowstorm became more severe and it looked like it would continue for several days. At this moment, inside the big tree, Henry glanced at Alaric and reminded him in a whispering voice, "My lord, the Baron's birthday is coming." "I know," Alaric nodded calmly. Meanwhile, Ivana, who was still slightly upset, stared at him in surprise when she heard this. The displeasure in her heart instantly vanished and was replaced with guilt and self-reproach. "They helped me and escorted me here despite the dangers, but I actually felt displeased just because we abandoned the horses. I'm sorry. Because of me, you might not make it to your father's birthday." She already knew a lot about Alaric, including his identity. When Henry mentioned the Baron, she knew that he was talking about Alaric's father. "It's fine. Before I decided to help you, I already considered this matter." He paused and sent her a reassuring smile before he continued. "There is still some time before that day comes. I'm sure we can make it somehow." Ivana felt better, but she was still embarrassed to face him. There was a long silence after that. Only the fierce whines and the caw-caw sounds of the flame could be heard. The next day, the snowstorm that they expected to last for a couple more days miraculously settled down, so the group immediately resumed their journey after Alaric's routine exercises. They tried to look for the horses, but they were nowhere to be found. Their tracks had also been covered by the piles of snow, so even with Alaric's trade tracking, they failed to find them. Without their mounts, the group could only continue the journey on foot. "Are you feeling cold?" Alaric asked when he saw Ivana shivering. "It's still manageable," Ivana stubbornly responded. Alaric didn't believe this. She has a soul mark, but she hasn't become a beast soul warrior yet, which means her physical condition is similar to that of a normal human. Is this an elf's pride? Alaric thought. He took a thick fur scarf from his leather bag and helped her wear it around her neck. "This will help you keep yourself warmer." He then took a glance at her hands and said, "Let's change your gloves too." Arthur, who was walking behind them, smiled upon seeing this scene. "Oh, youth." In the next 12 hours, or about half a day, the group only managed to travel less than 70 miles because the snow was getting thicker, which made it harder for them to walk. Their clothes that had been warmed by the bonfire were once again dampened by the snow, making them uncomfortable. "My lord, I can't recognize the path anymore," Henry reported while shaking his head. Alaric frowned and observed the surroundings. The trees looked oddly similar, so it was difficult to tell which path they should take. Because of his tracking, he instinctively knew which direction to go, but he still hadn't put this instinctive tracking to good use. I only use this trait in hunting, so I don't know how reliable it is. Alaric sensed everyone's gazes on him. They were waiting for his decision, and their trust weighed heavily on him. He took a deep breath before he made a decision. "Follow me. I'll lead the way this time." Alaric stared deeply at them. The two old warriors looked visibly surprised by his words. Alaric had never displayed his navigation skills, so they weren't sure if he could do the job well. However, despite the doubts, they still nodded and chose to trust his decision. "Do you trust me?" Alaric stared at the elf. "And," Ivana hummed in response. Alaric smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry. I will make sure that you can go back to your home." Ivana's eyes flashed with gratitude. "Thank you, Alaric." Under Alaric's lead, they persisted with their journey. At first, they thought that he was just blindly walking without a sense of direction, but his calm and steady demeanor made them rethink their thoughts. Soon, the trees had become more numerous, a sign that they were getting closer to the enchanted woodlands. "There's a lot of them." Henry's voice suddenly drifted into their ears. Alaric frowned and placed his hands on the handle of his swords. The two old warriors also prepared to engage in combat. In the next moment, a few figures appeared on the branches of the trees, looking down at them with unfriendly eyes. Elves! Alaric and the two old warriors were stunned by their presence. "Humans! How dare you infiltrate this sacred woods?" shouted an elf warrior who was aiming his bow and arrow. "Huh?" The elf warrior, who seemed to be the leader of the bunch, detected a familiar aura among the humans. He frowned when his eyes landed on the person whose face was covered with a cloth. An elf. When he realized that it was an elf, his expression fell. "How dare you filthy humans capture an elf?" he roared. The atmosphere became tense as soon as his words fell into everyone's ears. The elves knocked their arrows and aimed at the humans with furious gazes. "Wait!" Ivana, who was silent the entire time, removed the cloth on her head, revealing her beautiful face. "Lower your weapons at once," she shouted in a commanding tone. A shocking thing happened after she revealed her face. Chapter 86. Ivana's Reward. The leading elf jumped down from the tree and approached Ivana with a look of disbelief. "Your Highness!" His voice was trembling as if he couldn't control his emotions. Ivana's face remained cold as she uttered, "Did you not hear my words?" Sensing the gravity in her tone, the elf immediately realized his mistake. He made a hand signal and shouted, "Lower your weapons. Do you not recognize the princess?" The elves were terrified upon hearing his words. They quickly lowered their weapons, jumped down from the trees, and kneeled before her. "We greet your highness." Their voice resonated through the forest, startling the birds nearby. Meanwhile, Alaric and the two old warriors were flabbergasted. They never would have thought that the elf they had traveled with was actually the princess of the elves. No wonder she was secretive about her identity. "I thought she was just a high elf or something. It turns out she is actually a princess," Alaric thought as he watched the scene. At this moment, Ivana was still reprimanding the elves. "Do you even know that these men saved my life? If it weren't for them, I would have died in some unknown place. You guys even dare to point your weapons at them?" She spoke harshly and not one elf dared to even raise their head. Damn, so fierce. Alaric couldn't believe that the shy elf also had this side of her. "It's all right, Ivana. Don't be too harsh on them. They are only doing their jobs," he spoke to assuage her anger. Ivana glanced at him, her gaze visibly softening. "Fine. Since you have spoken for them, then I will forget this matter." She then turned her gaze back to the elven warriors and muttered, "Stand up." The elven warriors stood up in unison. They looked very organized and well-trained with no sloppy movements. "Ivana," Alaric called out. "MN," Ivana stared at her questioningly. "I have already done as I had promised. Since you have your people now, I think it's time for us to return." Alaric smiled faintly. Hearing this, Ivana felt a trace of reluctance. She has been with them for a long time, so she didn't want to separate just like that. "Why don't you come with us for a while? I will give you a proper compensation for bringing me back home, she suggested while staring deeply at Alaric's eyes. The elven warriors looked visibly shocked by her offer. They had never brought humans to their territory, so they found it unbelievable for the princess to invite them. Alaric shook his head with an apologetic smile. I would love to go with you, but we must go. I'm sure you already know the reason. Ivana sighed in regret, but she didn't insist. I understand, but I can't let you go unrewarded for your efforts. After she uttered those words, she looked at the leader of the elven warriors and spoke to him in elven language. Alaric didn't understand anything, but he saw the look of surprise on the elven warrior's face. A moment later, the elven warrior barked a command to his subordinates. Just wait for a moment, Alaric. This won't take a lot of time. Ivana spoke to him in common language. All right, we will wait for a bit. Alaric nodded. Since we will be bidding farewell later, why don't we chat while we wait for them to return? Ivana suggested with a light smile. That's not a problem, but I think those two won't be able to talk with you like how they used to. Alaric chuckled as he pointed at the two old warriors, who were staring at her with awkward gazes. Ivana laughed when she realized the meaning behind his words. I apologize for being harsh on you before, Your Highness. I didn't know your identity. Henry squeezed out a smile. Me too. I shouldn't have yelled at you back then, Arthur added. Looking at the two apologetic old men, Ivana shook her head and smiled. It's all right. You two are like mentors to me, and I found it refreshing to be treated like a normal person despite our racial differences. Besides, I haven't thanked you enough for teaching me a lot of things. While they were chatting, the elves were stunned when they saw how comfortable their princess was with the humans. In their kingdom, she was known as an aloof woman, a high and mighty goddess that no one would even dare to look at. After about less than an hour of waiting, the elven warriors who had left earlier finally returned. They had brought with them 5 muscular horses covered with long, silky manes. Unlike wild horses, these guys looked bigger and more powerful. Additionally, they also possessed mana equivalent to that of a knight. One of the 5 stood out in particular. It was a brown horse with a silky black mane and a striking white blaze running down its face. This horse's mana was so dense that Henry, who was an elite knight, felt that he was weaker than it. Ivana, Alaric could already tell what was about to happen, but he still sent Ivana an inquisitive look. Ivana smiled when she saw his expression. I don't know if you're familiar with those horses. We call them Nyx Equus, which translates to frost horse in common language. We gave them that name because they procreate during winter. She looked embarrassed when she mentioned this. Don't tell me you are planning to give these horses to us. It's just a small matter compared to what you guys have done for me. Please accept these horses. I won't feel at ease if you reject them. Alaric knew how valuable these horses were. If they were to be auctioned in the Empire, they would be worth a lot of money. Henry and Arthur loved the horses, but they didn't say anything and just waited for Alaric to make the decision. After thinking for an entire minute, Alaric smiled bitterly. This gift is too much, Ivana. Chapter 87. Returning to Turtle Fort. Please, Alaric, I insist. It's the least I can do for you guys for bringing me here. Besides, your journey back home will be faster with these horses. I assure you that you won't be late for your father's birthday if you ride these horses. Ivana was worried that he wouldn't accept her gift, so she brought up his father's birthday. Hearing this, Alaric hesitated. It was true that it would take them much longer if they were to go back on foot. Looking at the handsome horses filled with vigorous mana, he finally nodded his head. All right, I won't be polite then. Great, Ivana was relieved. But will they listen to us? Alaric had a troubled look. The horses were powerful and one of them seemed even stronger than Henry. It would be troublesome if the horses would suddenly rebel on their way back to the Empire. Ivana smiled upon hearing this. You don't need to worry about that. We have tamed these horses. They are docile and will obediently listen to your commands, she explained. I see. That's good to hear. Ivana sent the elven warriors a look. The elves understood her intentions and immediately handed the horses to Alaric's group. "They are yours now. Please take care of them," Ivana reminded with a stern look. Alaric knew what she was talking about. "I know. I will not abandon these horses. I will treat them well, I promise," he reassured her. The two exchanged more words and soon, it was finally time to bid each other goodbye. "I enjoyed our time together, Ivana. We must go now. You should be careful when you go out of the enchanted woodlands next time." "Not all humans are trustworthy," he warned her. Ivana nodded. "I understand. I hope you guys will have a safe trip back home. If you need any help, just look for me in the enchanted woodlands. If you encounter any elves, just mention them my name. I will remember your words." Alaric nodded. He then jumped on the back of the largest frost horse. Henry and Arthur followed suit. "Where can I look for you?" Ivana suddenly asked. Alaric turned his head and responded, "You can find me in a small town called North Pine Town. If you get there, just mention my name to the townspeople. Goodbye. I hope to see you guys again soon." Ivana's eyes were filled with reluctance. "If fate permits," Alaric smiled and waved his hand. He then looked at the two old warriors and said, "Let's go." Before leaving, Henry and Arthur bowed to Ivana. Meanwhile, Alaric gave her one last look. In the next moment, the trio finally left. "Alaric Silvasod, my friend." Ivana smiled as he watched the young human warrior slowly disappear into the forest. When she could no longer see their shadow, her eyes turned cold. "Let's go. We need to gather our warriors to hunt some humans." She had never forgotten the humans who tried to capture her. Now that she had returned to her territory, it was time to prepare her revenge. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Alaric and the two old warriors didn't meet an accident on their way back to the fortress city. The journey was unusually smooth, as if the monsters were avoiding them on purpose. "Is it because of you guys?" Alaric muttered as he rubbed the neck of the horse. He believed that the powerful auras of the frost horses intimidated the monsters. It only took them less than half a day to reach Turtle Fort. It was an amazing feat that would have been impossible without the frost horses. Upon reaching the city, the gate guards were stunned upon seeing their mounts. They discussed among themselves, and it looked like they had bad intentions. Although they tried to do it discreetly, Alaric could already tell what was on their minds. To prevent something from going wrong, he immediately took out the insignia of House Silvasod. "I am Alaric Silvasod, son of Lucas Silvasod. Please think twice before you decide to do something foolish." Alaric stared deeply at them. He used his father's name to intimidate them. When the gate guards saw the symbol of House Silvasod on his token, their eyes constricted with fear. Everyone in the north knew the Silver Swords. Lucas Silvasod cemented himself as one of the strongest warriors in the empire. Getting on his bad side was like a death sentence, so they immediately abandoned the funny ideas they had. "What are you talking about, my lord? It's just a misunderstanding. We have no intention of provoking you." One of them forced out a smile. Alaric glared at him and muttered in a cold voice, "I don't want this to happen again. Now make way for us before I grab my swords." "Yes, yes." The gate guards didn't dare delay them anymore and allowed them to go inside the city. After they left, one of the guards whispered to the person in charge, "Sir, should we report this to the higher-ups?" The person in charge smacked the back of his head. "Report my ass. If you want to provoke the Silver Swords, then be my guest." "I was just talking nonsense, sir." At this moment, Alaric's group had already entered Turtle Fort, and they were now heading to the inn where they left Fredrin and the others. Their horses attracted a lot of attention, but Alaric openly wore a cape that bore the crest of House Silvasod, which made those who had ulterior motives give up their ideas. When they arrived at the inn, they discovered a large group of civilians gathering at the entrance. "My lord, there seems to be a situation in front of the inn," Henry said with a frown. "Let's go and take a look." Alaric had a bad feeling. He could hear people arguing, and one of the voices seemed familiar. As soon as they got closer, they realized that there was a confrontation between two groups. Fredrin, Alaric furrowed his eyebrows. Chapter 88. Dylan's Disappointing Brother. Alaric saw Fredrin arguing with a chubby man wearing a thick coat over his winter clothes. "Do you even know who I am?" the chubby man shouted at Fredrin with a disdainful look on his face. "Please stop being unreasonable. We paid for the lodgings here, so you don't have the right to kick us out," Fredrin responded while suppressing his anger. The chubby man sneered. "Listen here, peasant. In this fortress city, my words are the laws. Do you hear me?" Even without asking, Alaric could already tell what was going on. There are many garbage within the noble circle. They use their status to oppress the weak, but during wartime, they are always the first ones to escape. He muttered coldly in his heart. He hated this kind of people. "Bring that lump of fat in front of me," Alaric instructed in a flat tone. Hearing his words, Arthur jumped down from his horse as he said, "Leave it to me, my lord." Arthur walked towards the chubby man, but he was stopped by the latter's guards. "Who are you?" "Are you one of these peasants?" The chubby man laughed condescendingly at Arthur. Sir Arthur Mark, who was standing behind Fredrin, was pleasantly surprised when he saw Arthur. Fredrin also looked around, and when he saw Alaric among the crowd, he was relieved. He knew that this matter would soon be taken care of. Arthur was pissed off. If he could, he would have already unsheathed his sword to cut down this fat pig, but he held back his anger. "Move aside if you don't want things to escalate," he warned the man's guards. "Who do you think you are?" "Do you know who I am?" The chubby man glared at Arthur fearlessly. Arthur suddenly smiled, but because of his scars, his face looked incredibly terrifying. "Oh, please tell me who you are," he muttered sarcastically. "You," the chubby man's face shook with rage. "Very well, listen closely, old man," he snorted. "My name is Rick Heinrich, son of Smith Heinrich of Radonia." His face was filled with arrogance when he mentioned his father's name. Arthur furrowed his eyebrows. The name sounds familiar for some reason. "Hold on, Smith Heinrich. Isn't that Lord Dylan Heinrich's father?" "Don't tell me this is his brother." A few months ago, when House Silvasaud hosted a celebration for Alaric's advancement, a man named Dylan Heinrich suggested an unofficial competition. This particular young man left a mark on Arthur because of his impressive skills at his age. "Why are you silent? Did you wet your pants, old man?" "Ha ha ha," Rick laughed mockingly. Arthur shook his head and muttered derisively. "Who would have thought that Lord Dylan actually has a brother like you? What did you say?" Reich's face darkened. "Get that old man and beat him up for me." Just as his guards were about to grab Arthur, a nonchalant voice suddenly drifted into their ears. "How disappointing. You don't even have an ounce of your brother's grace. You look absolutely nothing like him." Everyone turned their gazes and saw a young warrior on a horse slowly approaching Rick. Lord Alaric, Fredrin, Mark, and Elaine greeted respectfully upon seeing him. "You are," Rick frowned as he looked at the elegant young warrior. He felt that he had met a tough opponent this time, someone that he couldn't afford to provoke. Even though he was furious after being mocked, he didn't dare speak carelessly. Looking at his elegant bearing, handsome looks, and graceful temperament, Rick could tell that he was someone of notable status. Alaric tapped the crest on his chest. It was the insignia of House Silvasaud. "Do you not recognize this symbol?" Rick glanced at the crest and frowned, seemingly in deep thought. "Pathetic. To think that you are a noble in the north, but you are this clueless. Lord Smith must be disappointed for having a son like you." Alaric shook his head indifferently. Rick clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. His shoulders were visibly shaking as he took deep breaths. "That is the insignia of House Silvasaud," someone from the crowd exclaimed. A collective gasp of astonishment followed when they realized who Alaric might be. His striking silvery white hair and his golden crimson eyes made everyone think of one person: Alaric Silvasaud. Rick Heinrich also reached the same conclusion, and his eyes flashed with fear. Lord Alaric, why are you defending those peasants?" He wiped off the sweat on his face while cautiously looking at Alaric. "Rick, is it?" Alaric's eyes were terrifyingly cold. Rick hurriedly looked away, afraid to meet his eyes. The ones you called peasants are my people. Reich's knees buckled under his intense gaze, but before he fell to the ground, his guards quickly caught him. Lord Alaric, please quell your anger. Lord Rick was just having a bad day. It wasn't his intention to provoke your people. One of the guards immediately spoke up for him. Alaric ignored the guard and kept his eyes on Rick. I will remember this. Rick Heinrich. Soon, I will visit Radonia and ask Baron Smith Heinrich for an explanation. He took one final look at Rick to memorize his face. Alaric looked away from him in disgust and said, "Let's go. We're leaving now." "Yes, my lord." The crowd watched Alaric's group leave in awe. So that's Lord Alaric. He looks formidable. I have finally met the rising star of the North in person. I heard that he challenged the second heir of House Paxley to a sacred duel. Apparently, this happened. Rick was scared witless when he heard the crowd's discussion. He had also heard about what happened in Rivad. I'm screwed this time. He grabbed his head as he tried to come up with a way to get out of this situation. He won't challenge me to a sacred duel over something like this, right? There's no way. He tried to convince himself, but the more he thought about it, the more terrified he became. Chapter 89, Flogged 100 Times. My lord, the Heinrichs are not any weaker compared to the Silver Swords. Is it really all right to offend them for our sake? Fredrin took a glance at Alaric. It doesn't matter whether he is from House Heinrich or another noble family. I won't let anyone touch my people, Alaric calmly responded. Hearing this, Fredrin raised his eyebrows in surprise. It was very rare to find a lord who would be willing to offend someone of high status for the sake of his servants. Don't worry about it. The Heinrichs is the least of my worries. They won't do anything for a minor issue like this, Alaric reassured them when he saw their worried gazes. No one mentioned this matter anymore after he stated those words. His calmness and indifferent attitude made everyone feel that nothing would go wrong. With the frost horses, the group managed to decrease their travel time. They soon arrived at Alverden on the second day of their journey, where they decided to temporarily make a stop to replenish their supplies. Lord Alaric, a familiar face, greeted them at the town's main gate. It was Ronan, the captain of the town guards. Alaric smiled and nodded to him. It seems like you are already aware of my identity, he muttered in a joking tone. Ronan scratched his head in embarrassment as he replied, I tried to keep your identity a secret, but it still reached the ears of the mayor. I had no choice but to mention your name to him. It was from him that I learned about your identity, my lord. I see Alaric didn't get angry over this. It was just a trifling matter. Are you here to replenish your supplies? Ronan asked. That's right. Can you recommend a decent place where we can find some quality meat? Of course. Come and follow me, my lord. I will take you there myself. Ronan volunteered to lead them. Alaric wanted to reject him, but the guy insisted on doing him this favor for failing to hide his identity. In the end, Alaric could only helplessly agree under his pleading gaze. An hour later, Ronan brought them to a meat shop. My lord, this is the place. They got a batch of fresh meat from us yesterday. Let me do the talking so the shop owner will give you a fair deal. Ronan eagerly introduced the place. With his help, they managed to acquire enough meat for the group for a week's worth of travel. Thank you for your help, Sir Ronan. Alaric shook hands with the knight. It's an honor to serve you, my lord. If you need anything else, you know where to find me. Ronan chuckled. All right, we'll take our leave first. After bidding him farewell, Alaric's group went to look for an inn. They didn't go to the same inn they stayed at before to avoid the scrutiny of the town's mayor. He wanted to get some rest, so he didn't want to meet him or any officials of the town. Interestingly, it seemed like the mayor had realized his intentions. A few town guards lurked near the inn where they stayed, but no one bothered them. The next day, the group left Alverden after bidding Ronan farewell. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. A few days later, on the 12th day of January, Alaric's group finally arrived at North Pine Town. They were escorted by the warriors of House Silvasad before they even reached the estate. The person leading the escort team was Aldrin. "My lord, we were worried about you. It's good that you're finally here," Aldrin sighed while looking at him. "Look at you, I wasn't even gone for a long time." Alaric chuckled while shaking his head. "By the way, did something happen while I was gone?" he asked. Hearing this, Aldrin hesitated. "Something did happen, my lord." "What is it?" Alaric frowned. All sorts of problems had come up after his regression, and it made him feel concerned since some of those issues didn't exist in his past life. Aldrin urged his horse to come closer to Alaric as he cleared his throat. He looked around and made sure that no one was listening before he opened his mouth. "When we returned from Rivard, Lord Charles tried to take away the saber-fanged wolf cubs and the disaster-grade beast Soul Crystal." Hearing this, Alaric frowned. Sir Warwick stopped him before he could take anything. However, Lord Charles found an excuse to punish Chelmo and Sir Bernard for disobeying him. Aldrin added, "Charles, how dare you touch my people?" Alaric suppressed his fury. How are they doing? They were both flogged 100 times for disobedience. They received immediate treatment after the punishment, but the doctor said that they would be unable to walk normally for a couple of weeks. Aldrin gloomily responded. Alaric took a deep breath to calm his rampaging emotions. He then turned his head to Arthur and said, "Sir Arthur, please bring these horses to somewhere safe and make sure that no one would touch them." "Yes, my lord." He then moved his gaze to Henry and instructed, "Sir Henry, please arrange their lodgings." "Leave it to me, my lord," the old man replied. Alaric glanced at Aldrin and muttered in a cold voice, "Bring me to see Sir Chelmo and Sir Bernard." "Yes, my lord." The two went ahead of the group. When they arrived at the estate, they immediately headed straight to the clinic. As soon as they arrived, Alaric jumped down from the frost horse and walked inside the clinic with heavy footsteps. He later found Chelmo and Bernard inside a patient room where they were receiving treatment. "My lord," the two knights were surprised to see him. They tried to get up from the bed, but they grimaced in pain. "Just stay on your bed. There's no need to worry about formalities." Alaric became even more furious when he saw their situation. "I'm sorry for not being there for you guys." Chapter 90. "It's not your fault, my lord." Bernard shook his head with a bitter smile on his face. "It was only because Sir Charles was too shameless," Chelmo muttered under his breath. "Chelmo," Bernard sent him a stern look. "It's fine, Sir Chelmo is right. My uncle has been acting shamelessly these past few months," Alaric indifferently said. He had been holding back this whole time, waiting for the opportune moment to strike his uncle. However, the latter had repeatedly touched his bottom line. "I can't wait anymore. I should deal with this tumor now." Chelmo and Bernard sensed the sudden change in his emotion, but they didn't dare say anything. This matter was related to the direct bloodline of House Silvasad, so they had no power to intervene. "Don't worry. I will make sure that he will be punished. Just stay here and recuperate." Alaric's words stunned the two knights. "My lord, you might offend Sir Charles if you do this," Chelmo worriedly responded. "Chelmo is right, my lord. It's not worth it to offend Sir Charles for our sake," Bernard added. Charles Silvasad held an important role in House Silvasad. His faction was mostly responsible for protecting the businesses of the household. If something happened to him, there would be severe repercussions. Offend him, Alaric chuckled while shaking his head. "I'm going to destroy him," he muttered in a cold voice. The two knights gasped at his words. Alaric didn't stay there for long. After saying a few more words and reminding them to rest well, he left the clinic with Aldrin. "My lord, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard what you guys were talking about." "Are you really going to make a move on Sir Charles?" Aldrin had a solemn look. This matter was too big, and it was bound to shake the foundations of House Silvasad. One wrong move and the entire household might even collapse. "It's about time to clean up the household," Alaric calmly replied. Aldrin took a deep breath. Aldrin, please send 5 knight apprentices to replace Sir Galliner. I need him now, Alaric instructed. Leave it to me, my lord. Aldrin acknowledged his command with a nod. After Aldrin left, Alaric went inside the main mansion and headed straight to his room to gather all the pieces of evidence he had collected over the past few months. To gather these documents, he sent Galliner and a few other trustworthy people on multiple occasions. Inside his room, Alaric opened a hidden compartment behind a painting on the wall. Inside this compartment was a small steel chest that contained all the documents he had gathered to bring down his uncle. He opened the chest and took out the stacks of paper inside. He then put the chest back into the compartment and stepped out of his room. These documents are still lacking, but they should be enough to bring Charles down. On his way to his father's study, he coincidentally encountered both Lucas and Maria in the hallway. Alaric, we were looking for you everywhere. Lucas smiled upon seeing him. It's good to see you again, son. I missed you. Maria hugged him tightly. I missed you too, Mom. Alaric's gaze softened. What's that on your hand? Lucas stared at the documents in his hands with furrowed eyebrows. Hearing this, Maria let go of Alaric and stared at him questioningly. Let's talk somewhere more private, Alaric replied with a serious. Sensing the gravity in his tone, the couple realized that it must be an important matter. Lucas stared deeply at him and nodded. All right, follow me to my study. The family of 3 headed to the study room, and as soon as they arrived, Alaric unceremoniously took his seat. Dad, Mom, please take a look at these documents. Alaric placed the pieces of paper on the table. Lucas and Maria curiously took one paper each. At first, they were still nonchalantly reading the contents, but the more they read, the more serious they became. Lucas's expression changed. Meanwhile, Maria had a look of disbelief. The two read the rest of the documents, and by the time they read everything, their faces had turned dark. Are all the things written here true? Lucas put down the last document he had read as he looked at Alaric with a grim face. Yes, Alaric nodded. I have been gathering this information since I started discovering some unusual things about Uncle. Lucas rubbed his temples and leaned on his seat. The things he learned today were too much for him to handle. What about this? You mentioned here that you suspect that your uncle would poison your father. But you don't have evidence to back this claim. Maria pointed out a specific document where Alaric had written his speculations. That's true, but I have thought of a way for us to know if my speculations are correct. Alaric already had a plan in mind. He was just unable to execute it because he had been so busy recently. Tell us your plan. Lucas stared deeply at him. Alaric glanced at them and said, Let's announce that we will be hiring a new maidservant who will take care of Father's meals. Hearing this, Maria raised his eyebrows. Are you planning to lure your uncle in this trap? That's right. Alaric nodded. If my guess is right, then he will definitely take the chance to bring one of his own people to Dad's side. Maria pondered deeply. His plan was feasible, but it also carried some risks. Let's do it, Lucas muttered. Are you sure about this? Maria stared at her husband with concern. I want to see if my brother really intends to kill me, Lucas replied with a heavy look. Lucas had always thought that his brother was someone he could trust. He had given Charles everything he needed, so he felt betrayed after knowing all the dirty deeds he had done behind his back. He finally realized why Alaric was unusually hostile towards Charles. It turned out that his son already knew the truth a long time ago. Chapter 91, Reading the Applicant's Information. The next day, news spread within the household that the Baron was hiring a new maidservant to serve his meals. Although the selection process was rigorous, many applicants applied for the position. In just half a day, they already received over 20 applications. It was also around this time that this particular information reached Charles's ears. Strange, why is he suddenly hiring another maidservant? Charles muttered after reading the report sent by his subordinates. I think my nephew's girlfriend is responsible for this mission. All this time, it was Elena and the old butler who were responsible for sending the Baron's meals. Isn't this my chance? A smile formed on his lips. He had been biding his time while waiting for an opportunity. Now that the chance that he had been waiting for had arrived, how could he let it slip past his grasp? He turned his head and spoke. "Gerard, bring the female assassins we trained here." From the dark corners of his room, a figure suddenly emerged. It was a man wearing standard knight armor. His face was devoid of emotions. "Yes, my lord," the man uttered. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Meanwhile, in the training ground, Alaric had just completed his daily mission. Alaric Silvasud 90 XP, 455 hundredths. Potential, B. Traits, horseback riding C, swordsmanship SSS, close combat C, archery F, hunting E, tracking E, sixth sense F. Strength, 100. Stamina, 40 plus. Agility, 100. Vitality, 27 plus. Endurance, 42 plus. Mana, 48 plus. Battle points, 3,350. Stat points, 6. Requirements for next advancement, 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. He was about to close the science screen when a prompt suddenly appeared before him. Underscore, mission, revenge 2. Mission difficulty, normal. You have gathered enough evidence to destroy your uncle's reputation. Bring him down. Time limit, 47 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds. Rewards, 400 battle points, 25 EXP, 25 stat points, item upgrade card by 1. Penalty for failure, 50 XP minus 1,000 battle points. Underscore, the rewards almost blinded his eyes. Damn, I will get this much reward if I manage to take him down. But that's strange. Why is the mission difficulty set at normal? He had only gotten one normal difficulty mission, and it was when they had fought with the goblin chieftain in the evergreen forest. Are there some dangers involved in this mission? He frowned. I just need to be careful. Alaric closed the science screen. At this moment, Elena appeared in front of him and handed him a flask. "My lord, drink this water." The girl beamed at him. "Thank you, Elena." Alaric grabbed the flask and took a big gulp of water. While he was drinking from the flask, Elena asked, "My lord, why are the warriors acting strangely today?" Hearing this, Alaric handed the flask back to her and raised his eyebrows. "What do you mean?" Elena pointed at the knights and the warriors who were in the middle of their physical training. "Look, they are more motivated to train today. It's like they are preparing for a battle." Alaric was surprised. He didn't expect her to be this perceptive. He patted her head and smiled. "Don't worry about it, Elena. Just don't mention this to anyone, okay?" The girl was confused, but she still nodded her head. "I understand, my lord." "I won't tell anyone about this." She made a zipping gesture with her hand over her lips. "Good," Alaric chuckled. He then took a glance at Galliner, who was waiting for him nearby. "Let's go. I need to check the list of applicants." "Yes, my lord," Galliner nodded. The trio left the training ground and headed to Lucas's study room. When they arrived, Alaric saw his father going through the information of the applicants. "My lord," there were other people present, so Alaric greeted the Baron formally. Lucas lifted his head and nodded at him. "Sit down and help me check these applicants." "Yes, my lord." After Alaric took his seat, the Baron handed him all the information about the people who applied for the maidservant position. Alaric already knew which person would poison his father. Each paper contained the drawn image of the applicant and some information about them. Alaric went through every page, but the person he was looking for wasn't there. "She's not here." "Did you send the information to Uncle's side?" Alaric stared at the Baron. "Yes. We intentionally spread the news on his side so he should know about it by now." Lucas replied with a nod. "Let's wait until tomorrow. Once the number of applicants reaches 100, I will handle the selection process." Alaric didn't tell the Baron that he was already aware of which person his uncle would send. He wouldn't be able to explain it, so he just kept it to himself. The Baron frowned at his words. How will you find the person he would send? I have my ways, my lord. Please trust me on this, Alaric responded with a firm tone. Looking at his son's serious face, the Baron refrained from asking and decided to trust him. All right, just let me know if you need anything. Thank you, my lord. I won't disappoint you. Alaric lowered his head. You may leave. I will send the information about the next batch of applicants to you later. Lucas waved his hand. Alaric stood up and bowed to the Baron. I'll take my leave now, my lord. After leaving his father's study room, Alaric went out of the main mansion to find Arthur. It was time to fulfill the promise he made to him. They later found him at the stables where the frost horses were kept. Upon seeing him, Arthur immediately stopped what he was doing and greeted him respectfully with a knight's salute, my lord. Alaric felt guilty when he saw the makeshift bed in the middle of the stables. He guessed that Arthur must have stayed here all night to watch over the frost horses. Alaric sighed as he muttered apologetically, Sir Arthur, I apologize for making you wait. I should have given this to you yesterday, but I got delayed because of some issues. He took out a beast soul crystal from his leather pouch and handed it to Arthur. Chapter 92, Elena's Tea. Is this the Arthur felt the dense energy inside the beast's soul crystal? He didn't even need confirmation to know that it was the disaster-grade beast soul crystal. Please use it for your advancement. Alaric tapped his shoulder with a light smile. Don't worry, I won't take it back this time, he added in a joking tone. Arthur chuckled at his words. Thank you, my lord. He bowed gratefully. Alaric waved his hand. You don't need to thank me. I'm just fulfilling my promise. He then looked at the frost horses and said, I'll send someone trustworthy to look after the frost horses. In the meantime, you should prepare for your advancement. Yes, my lord. Alaric didn't stay for long and left after giving him a few more reminders and instructions. Arthur's foundation is very stable. With the help of the disaster-grade beast soul crystal, he should be able to advance in less than a week. If he's lucky, it might only take a few days. He hoped that Arthur would advance before he would have to face off with Charles, but it was highly unlikely to happen. When evening came, the butler came to deliver a document sent by the Baron. My lord, the Baron sent me to give this to you. The butler bowed respectfully while handing him a small pile of documents. This must be the information on the next batch of applicants. Alaric took the documents from the butler's hands. Thank you. Please inform the Patriarch that we will proceed as we had initially planned. I will convey your message to the Baron. The butler nodded. You may leave now. Alaric dismissed him and headed back to his room to check the documents. In the next half an hour, he went through the documents, but the person he was looking for was still not there. She's not here. Will she come tomorrow? Alaric leaned on his seat and massaged his nose bridge. He was certain that his uncle would send the same person for the position, but he was starting to get worried. What if his uncle had already sent someone? I'll confirm it tomorrow. Alaric retired to his bed and rested his eyes. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The next day, Alaric was awoken by a series of knocks on his door. He rubbed his eyes as he got up from his bed. Come in. A tired voice leaked out of his mouth. Creak. Elena stepped inside his room with a cup of freshly brewed tea in her hand. Good morning, my lord. Please drink this tea. I used everything I learned in the past few weeks to make this. After seeing Hershey's tea-making skills during their last trip to Rivard, she started learning how to make tea herself. Oh, then I must try it. Alaric took the teacup from the saucer and inhaled the refreshing aroma of the tea. It had a calming scent that reminded him of the cool mountain breeze. It smells good. After taking in its refreshing aroma, Alaric took a light sip of the tea. Huh? This? He was surprised when the familiar flavor hit his tongue. Do you recognize it, my lord? Elena giggled when she saw his expression. It does seem familiar. What tea leaves did you use to make this tea? He curiously stared at her. Don't be surprised, my lord. Actually, I used dried ericory petals to make this tea, Elena replied with a faint smile. What? No wonder the aftertaste has the distinct smell of ericories. They can actually be used to make teas. Where did you learn this from? Heh. I learned this from. Elena eagerly told him how she learned to make the tea, while Alaric repeatedly praised her. After drinking the tea she made for him, Alaric went to take a bath and changed into a formal outfit before heading to the Baron's study room with Elena. I should have enough time to complete my daily mission later. For now, I should check the new applicants. Just as they were about to take a turn towards the Baron's study room, they suddenly encountered the butler. "Good morning, my lord. Good morning, Miss Elena." The butler greeted them. "Good morning, Sir Bastian." Elena greeted him nervously, while Alaric nodded his head. "My lord, the Baron, and the madam are waiting for you at the dining hall," the butler informed him. "HM, isn't it too early for breakfast?" Alaric was taken aback. Elena was similarly surprised. "The Baron said that you will be busy later and he is worried that you might not have the time for a meal, so he asked the kitchen to prepare breakfast early today," the butler calmly explained. "I see. In that case, please lead the way." Alaric felt his father's care for him. He might not be so vocal about it, but he would always show it through his actions. As soon as they arrived at the dining hall, they saw the Baron and the madam chatting with serious faces. "Oh, you two are finally here. Come and sit with us." Maria beckoned to them with a smile. The Baron didn't say anything and just nodded to acknowledge their presence. "Sir Bastian, please tell the servants to serve the food," Maria instructed the butler. "Yes, my lady." After the butler left, Lucas sent him a glance. "Have you read the documents I sent over last night?" he asked. Alaric nodded his head. "Yes, my lord, I went through their information, but I haven't found anything significant yet." "If I'm not wrong, Uncle should be sending his people today." Lucas tapped his fingers on the table with a thoughtful look. He had also investigated the applicants, but their backgrounds were clean. Meanwhile, Elena couldn't understand what they were talking about, but she tactfully remained silent. Seeing that she was bored, Maria initiated a conversation with her. "When will the applicants arrive, my lord?" Alaric inquired. Lucas adjusted his posture and replied in a calm voice. "They are already waiting at the guest hall. You can go there after the meal." "All right." A few minutes later, the servants finally arrived to serve their food. While the dishes were being served, Lucas sent Alaric a look and said, "Let's eat first. We will discuss everything afterwards." Chapter 93. Assessment? After the meal. The butler handed some documents to Alaric. "This is information on the new applicants. I have already checked them earlier, but I found nothing suspicious." Lucas spoke after wiping off the grease on his lips with a napkin. Alaric nodded and took a quick scan of the portraits of the applicants. HM. His hand suddenly stopped when he saw a familiar face. It's her. Drawn on the paper was the image of a woman in her early 20s. She wore a joyous smile, the kind that would make everyone feel at ease. She didn't have an impressive beauty and she had these freckles on her nose that made her look innocent and cute. Alaric struggled hard to calm his emotions. He would never forget this face, for this was the very person who had poisoned his father in his past life. What is it? Did you find someone suspicious? Lucas raised an eyebrow when he sensed the sudden change in his expression. Alaric put down the documents and squeezed out a smile. It's nothing. He stood up and bowed his head to the Baron. I should go to the guest hall. We can't let all those people wait. Lucas frowned. He felt that Alaric was hiding something from him, but he decided to trust his son. Lucas waved his hand. Let me know if you discover something suspicious. Alaric nodded and left with Elena. On their way to the guest hall, Elena asked, My lord, why are we hiring a new maid for the Baron? Alaric felt that it was about time to tell her the truth. He shook his head. We are not. This is just a trap we set up to lure the traitor of the family, he muttered in a cold voice. Elena gasped in shock. A traitor. She felt that this matter was too big, so she didn't dare inquire further. I heard them talk about Sir Charles on most occasions. Is he the traitor? There's no way, right? She was scared of her own thoughts. A moment later, they arrived at the guest hall where dozens of women of varying ages had gathered. Upon their arrival, the women quickly spotted them and they all stood up in unison. "Greetings, Lord Alaric." Most of them were experienced servants, so they were familiar with noble etiquette. There were also a few who just followed the others. Looking at these women, Alaric felt a bit apologetic. All of them were hoping to get the vacant position, but they were destined to be disappointed. He smiled as he scanned their faces one by one. "Thank you for coming here. Today, we will select one of you to serve as the Baron's maidservant, but please be informed that the selection process will be strict." He paused to give them some time to comprehend his words. "Only the best one among you will be chosen for the job. I know this may sound unfair, especially to some of you who came from afar. For those who will fail the assessment, please don't give up. There are plenty of opportunities out there. A single." Alaric gave a short speech for formality's sake. While he was speaking to the audience, he finally found the woman sent by Charles. She has an ordinary face, so it was difficult to pinpoint her from the crowd. I don't sense mana from her, but her physique is more well-defined compared to the rest. She is probably trained in martial arts. Please follow me outside. The assessment will begin shortly. Although the evaluation was only for show, it had to be done systematically to prevent the target from becoming suspicious. On their way out of the main building, Alaric asked Elena some questions. "Elena, what should be the most important thing to take note of when serving your lord?" The first thing to consider is the lord's mood. As servants, we must be prepared to. How about this? What should be done? That's easy. We just need to. Alaric already had an idea of how the assessment would be conducted, but hearing Elena's opinion was important since she had a long working experience despite her young age. Her response gave him some ideas which he would add to the assessment process. There were a lot of applicants, so Alaric brought them to an open space next to the main mansion. "Everyone, may I have your attention, please?" Alaric raised his hand, signaling the applicants to keep quiet. The women stared at him and perked their ears. "For the first part of the assessment, I will be interviewing you one by one. I will only ask you simple questions, so there's no need to be nervous." "All right, let's begin with you." Alaric pointed at someone randomly. Alaric interviewed them one by one. At first, everyone was extremely nervous, but when they realized that he was only asking them some simple questions, they became less nervous. Soon, it was finally the target's turn to be interviewed. "What's your name?" Alaric stared at her with a smile. "My name is Pamela, my lord," the woman responded confidently. "Where do you live?" "My parents grew up in Vale, but I left the city and came here to seek my own opportunities. I don't want to rely on them. They are growing older, so I want to earn some money and help them with the finances," she responded with a sigh. "She's a good actress. If I didn't know anything about her, I would have believed her words." Alaric scoffed in his heart, but he pretended to sympathize with her experience. "I admire your courage to venture outside your comfort zone. Your parents must be happy to have you as their daughter." Pamela smiled shyly. "Thank you for your kind words, my lord." "Are you ready for the next questions?" "Yes, my lord." The interview continued and Pamela managed to answer everything without stuttering. "That's all I need to know. Thank you." Alaric stared deeply at her. Chapter 94. Planning the next steps. Several hours later, only 5 applicants remained from the dozens who had applied for the position. They were the best of the bunch, and even Alaric felt a bit reluctant to reject them considering their expertise. "It's a pity to reject these women. Should I recommend them to other positions instead?" Alaric thought while looking at the remaining 5. "Honestly, all 5 of you are perfect for the job, but I can only choose one." Alaric's words made the women nervously clench their hands. "Are you open to accepting a different position?" he probed. Hearing this, their eyes lit up with hope. For women like them, it was difficult to find a stable job no matter how skillful they were. "My lord, I will accept whatever job you offer." One of them spoke without hesitation. Me too, my lord. I can do anything. Another one chimed in. My lord. All 5 of them, including Pamela, expressed a positive response to his words. Good, Alaric nodded, looking quite pleased with their decisiveness. You and you. Alaric pointed at 2 of them. Both of you displayed the best skills in cooking. I need 2 cooks who will prepare food for my workers in the soap shop I opened in Vale. What do you think? I can offer you to a decent salary if you take the position. I agree, my lord. I'm willing, my lord. Alaric smiled and nodded. All right. I will have someone write your contracts later. Next is you. He stared at the oldest of the 5. The woman he was referring to adjusted her posture nervously. You showed the most remarkable talent and knowledge in gardening. The estate needs more skilled workers like you. Are you interested in this line of work? Alaric rubbed his chin. Yes, my lord. Good. Let's talk about your contract later. Moving on, Alaric glanced at the remaining 2 women. He scratched his head and pretended to be in deep thought as if he was hesitating about which one to choose between them. After a moment of silence, he finally opened his mouth. You mentioned here in your self-introduction that you once worked on a ranch with your parents. Do you have experience in taking care of horses? The woman beside Pamela nodded her head. Yes, my lord. My father taught me how to take care of horses and cattle. Although my skills are a bit lacking compared to my father's, I'm confident that I can take care of any farm animals. I also know how to raise war horses. She emphasized the last few words, which made Alaric think about the frost horses. Oh, can you handle fatal grade horses or even special ones? Alaric revealed a look of interest. It was rare to find someone who knew how to take care of special horse breeds. After all, these creatures were more particular in their diet and needs. The woman was taken aback, but she responded calmly. If they are wild-caught horses, then it might be difficult to take care of them. However, if they are already domesticated or if they are still young, then I can assure you that I can handle them. Great! I have a job for you. I will tell you the details later. Alaric slapped his thigh in excitement. He didn't want to give this job to his warriors since it would only hinder their training. Now that he had a professional who could do the job better, he no longer had to trouble himself with finding someone. Yes, my lord, the woman's face lit up with joy. Finally, Alaric glanced at Pamela. Congratulations! Starting today, you will be responsible for serving the Baron's meals. Pamela covered her mouth and displayed an expression of joy. Thank you for choosing me, my lord. I will not disappoint you. Alaric smiled, seemingly pleased with her. All right. You 5, follow me to the head maid's quarters. She will teach you all the things you need to know about your jobs. Alaric and Elena brought them to the head maid's quarters. The head maid was a middle-aged lady in her mid-40s, but she looked younger than her age. Greetings, my lord, the head maid bowed upon seeing him. Head housekeeper, these are the new servants we hired. Here is the information about them. Alaric handed over the documents which contain the personal information about the 5 women. Note, Alaric is respectfully addressing the head maid here as head housekeeper. Alaric informed the head maid about the women's new positions. They then discussed the salaries and the benefits they would receive for their jobs. After dealing with all these matters, Alaric headed straight to his father's study with Elena in tow. So did you discover something? Lucas stared deeply at his son. He had been informed about the assessment that Alaric conducted since morning, but he was still unaware of the results. Yes, my lord, Alaric nodded solemnly. Among the applicants, there is a woman named Pamela. I'm certain that she is the person sent by Uncle, he added. Lucas rubbed his chin. The name was familiar, but he had forgotten which one he was referring to. What makes you say that? Because she was the one who poisoned you in my past life. Alaric was silent for a moment. I observed them one by one and her physique is the best among the applicants. Although she doesn't possess mana, her physical abilities surpass the others by a huge margin. She tried to hide, but she couldn't hide it from me. Her expressions also looked fake to me. There are also a lot of suspicious points in her background. For instance, Alaric made a random comment about Pamela. Of course, this was him exaggerating. You discovered that much in just half a day. Lucas stared at him in disbelief. Alaric nodded calmly. Yes, my lord, I gave her the position according to what we had planned. Please keep an eye on her, but don't make it too obvious. All right, I'll have someone observe her activity. Lucas nodded. The father and son discussed the next steps of their plan. Chapter 95, Pamela. Another day passed by and it was already the 15th of January. Only 2 days remained before the Baron's birthday. At this moment, Alaric was on the training ground looking at his progress after he had completed his daily mission. Alaric Silvasud 90 XP, 450 to 500ths. Potential B. Traits: horseback riding C, swordsmanship SSS, close combat C, archery F, hunting E, tracking E, sixth sense F. Strength 100, stamina 40 plus, agility 100, vitality 27 plus, endurance 42 plus, mana 48 plus, battle points 3,370, stat points 8. Requirements for next advancement: 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. He then looked at the mission which he had yet to complete. Underscore mission Revenge 2. Mission difficulty normal. You have gathered enough evidence to destroy your uncle's reputation. Bring him down. Time limit 22 hours 37 minutes and 21 seconds. Rewards: 400 battle points, 25 EXP, 25 stat points, item upgrade card by 1. Penalty for failure: 50 XP minus 1,000 battle points. Underscore I only have 1 day left. Alaric's gaze hardened. He already had enough documents to prove his uncle's misdeeds, but the latter could deny those claims and place the blame on someone else. Alaric was certain of this because he knew how shameless his uncle was. Pamela was the key to catching Charles, but the former was yet to make a move. I already sent Galliner to observe her in secret, but there's still no news from him. He was starting to get worried. If he failed the mission, he would lose 50 XP and 1,000 battle points. Just the thought of it made him feel distressed. After all, he worked hard to earn those points. Alaric was on his way to the main mansion when he caught sight of Aldrin running towards him. My lord! Aldrin! What is it? Aldrin stopped in front of him and stayed silent for a moment to catch his breath, and then with a grim look, he reported, My lord, Sir Galliner sent me here to inform you that the target has already received the substance. Hearing this, Alaric narrowed his eyes. Where is he? He asked. Sir Galliner is still tailing her and Sir Henry volunteered to follow the person who gave her the substance. Aldrin responded, his voice turning grave. It looks like that damnable uncle of mine is really eager to kill my father. Alaric tapped Aldrin's shoulder and instructed, Go and tell everyone to get ready. We will make a move soon. Aldrin took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, my lord. After dismissing Aldrin, Alaric headed straight to his room to make his preparations. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Meanwhile, Pamela was now on her way back to her assigned quarters. Why did they deliver this earlier than what we had planned? She frowned as she clutched the small pouch hidden in her hand. Inside this pouch was a slow-acting poison and her task was to put this in the Baron's food. The initial plan was to gain the trust of the Baron and the servants of the household. She was told that they would only execute the next step of the plan once she had integrated into the household and was already accepted by the other servants. However, she received a coded message last night telling her to go to a specific location. Luckily, I managed to give the head housekeeper a good excuse to leave for a while. She thought to herself. When she arrived at the servants' quarters, she saw the head maid waiting outside her room. Pamela, where have you been? What took you so long? The head maid sent her a stern look. Ah, if only I could kill this person. Pamela lowered her head and apologized. I'm really sorry, head housekeeper. Something came up which delayed my. The head maid frowned. Enough. I don't want to hear your excuses. Pamela didn't say anything and just kept her head lowered. Listen closely, Pamela. Lord Alaric recommended you for the position, but I have the authority to kick you out if you don't do your tasks well. You haven't even started on your job, but you're already making the others wait for you. If this happens one more time, I will report it to Lord Alaric immediately. The head maid lashed out. Pamela's face changed upon hearing this. If she was kicked out, she would immediately fail her mission. If that happened, she could already imagine the punishment she would have to go through. Or worse, she might even be killed. This will not happen again, head housekeeper. I promise you. She made sure to show a regretful expression. The head maid snorted. Go and change into your new uniform. We will begin with the next training in 30 minutes. Yes, head housekeeper, Pamela bowed. The head maid sent her a look of disapproval before she turned around and left. Looking at her leaving figure, Pamela's eyes flashed with killing intent. You're lucky. When she stepped inside her room, she saw the new uniform placed on the small coffee table beside her bed. That person has the key to our room, so I need to hide the poison somewhere else. Although she had an ordinary face, her shapely body more than made up for it. She had it big in the right places, and her slim waist was something that every woman would envy. After putting on her uniform, Pamela pondered where should hide the poison. Now where should I put this thing? She didn't have enough time to think since the head maid only gave her 30 minutes to prepare. Hiding it here is too risky. I'll put it in me first. I'll find a better hiding place after the training. The pouch is double sealed, so I should be fine. Pamela grabbed the small pouch and inserted it carefully inside the narrow hole between her legs. A moan leaked out of her mouth as she inserted the pouch deeper inside her. After slightly over 10 seconds, she let out a relaxed sigh. Phew! Chapter 96. Aggressive Alaric. Knock. Knock. Pamela frowned when she heard the knocks on her door. Is it the old hag again? She adjusted her facial expression before she walked towards the door. Upon opening it, the first person she saw wasn't the head maid, but a towering middle-aged warrior wearing an expressionless face. Search the room, the middle-aged warrior uttered in a deep, commanding voice. As soon as his words fell, the warriors behind him pushed Pamela aside and stormed inside her room. Sir, what's going on? Pamela asked in a pitiful tone, but she was screaming with anxiety inside. Did they discover me? Impossible. I made sure that no one was tailing me. The tall and muscular middle-aged warrior looked down at her. His deep gaze sent chills down her spine. She might be a trained assassin, but she knew that this person could kill her in one move. That was what her instincts were telling her. Stay where you are. If you move even one step, I'll break your legs. A cold and deep voice drifted into her ears. Pamela instinctively raised her arms, but she stiffened when she saw the towering middle-aged warrior staring at her indifferently. Damn it! How did they discover me? Who was it? She turned her head and saw the head maid and a few other servants nearby. Was it one of them? No, it should be this guy. Her gaze moved back to the middle-aged warrior in front of her. Only a day had passed since she was accepted into the household and her identity was already revealed. She found it inconceivable. Just where did it go wrong? Sir Galliner, there's nothing suspicious inside the room, one of the warriors reported. Galliner frowned. Impossible. Search it again thoroughly. Yes, sir. The warriors carefully did another search, turning the room into a mess. Meanwhile, Galliner beckoned to a maidservant and said, Can you help me do a body search on this woman? The maidservant became nervous. Don't worry. I'll ensure your safety, Galliner reassured her when he saw her hesitating. All right. The maidservant nodded before she slowly approached Pamela. Sir, there must be a misunderstanding. Pamela squeezed out a smile as she looked at Galliner, but the latter remained unmoved. If you try to hurt this maidservant, just know that my fist will crush your head before you can even touch her. Galliner muttered. Pamela shivered upon hearing his words. There's no way she can find it, she thought to herself as she turned her gaze at the servant who had been tasked to do a search on her. Please excuse me, the maidservant mumbled before she hesitantly touched Pamela's clothes. Galliner watched the entire process without blinking. What's going on, head housekeeper? Why is Pamela being searched? Did she steal something? The nearby servants asked the head maid, but the latter glared at them. Stop asking questions. Do you guys even know who that big warrior is? The newly hired servants shook their heads. That is Sir Galliner. He is an elite knight working for Lord Alaric. The head maid explained in a stern voice. Hearing this, the servants gasped in shock. To them, knights were powerful warriors who could fight multiple normal warriors at once. As for elite knights, they viewed them as high and mighty beings. While the servants were silently whispering among themselves, Pamela was still being inspected. The maidservant responsible for the task looked visibly nervous. After carefully checking Pamela's clothes, she looked at Galliner and shook her head. She has nothing on her, sir. Hearing this, Galliner's face turned cold. Just as he was about to say something, a series of footsteps suddenly echoed. Everyone turned their heads and saw Alaric dressed in his battle attire. My lord! My lord! The servants, the warriors, and Galliner greeted him respectfully. Alaric remained composed as he walked past everyone and stood before Pamela. While looking at her face, he muttered, There are still 2 places that you haven't checked. The servant who did a search on Pamela raised her eyebrows in surprise. My lord, do you mean? Alaric ignored the shocked crowd and kept his eyes on Pamela. Remove your clothes, he uttered coldly. Pamela's eyes shook. My lord, I think that's inappropriate. This isn't a request. I'm commanding you to do it. Alaric was unperturbed. Facing this kind of woman, he had no misgivings in his actions. Pamela gritted her teeth. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to hide. The whole place was blocked by the warriors. She knew that she would only die if she resisted, so she could only comply. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Pamela removed her uniform, revealing her naked body. And then, without warning, Alaric pushed her against the wall and forced her to turn around. Ooh! Pamela yelped at the sudden use of force. She tried to move, but she couldn't even break free from his strong grip. Where is it? Alaric muttered, with anger evident in his voice. Alaric glanced at the pouch he had gotten from her before tossing it to Galliner. Have someone check if this is a poisonous substance, he instructed while wiping off the juices on his fingers using Pamela's uniform. Galliner caught the pouch and nodded. Yes, my lord. As for this woman, Alaric turned her gaze to Pamela, who had already fallen to the ground, looking dazed and lost. Lock her up and don't let her commit suicide. We still need to know the person behind her. Chapter 97. Results of the analysis. A few hours after the suspicious pouch was discovered on Pamela, the results of the tests were finally confirmed. At this moment, Alaric was inside the Baron's study together with the highest-ranking members of the household. Have you discovered the contents of the pouch? Lucas asked the herbalist who conducted the analysis on the substance. The herbalist, an old man in his 70s, nodded his head. Yes, my lord, I discovered an alarming amount of laudanum in the substance. It's the ashes of a poisonous plant called. Lucas suddenly raised his hand to stop the old man from talking. Stop! You don't need to tell me the specifics. Just tell me if it's poisonous if ingested by someone. Hearing this, the old herbalist cleared his throat and nodded. Yes, my lord. Although it won't kill a person right away, it will cause a severe impact on the body. Even a powerful knight would succumb if ingested repeatedly. Everyone frowned upon hearing the old man's words. Lucas nodded and waved his hand. Thank you. You may leave now. The old man had already been rewarded for the task, and he didn't dare ask for more. He left as soon as the Baron gave him the cue to leave. After the herbalist left, Lucas glanced at Alaric. Have you interrogated that woman? He asked with a grim look. Although he already knew that the person behind her was most likely his own brother, Lucas wanted to confirm it. Alaric nodded. Yes, my lord, Sir Henry has also captured the person who gave her the poison. The both of them are currently being interrogated by my subordinates. Well done, bring me to them. I would like to know who is behind these two. Lucas stood up from his seat with an unfathomable look on his face. I'll take you there, my lord. Alaric stood up and made a this-way gesture. With the father and son in the lead, everyone else followed behind them. The underground prison was located beneath the training ground. In the training ground, there was a secret door that was constantly guarded by the warriors of the household, and this door led to a tunnel where the underground prison was built. The group passed by this secret door and headed down the tunnel illuminated by the torches inclined on the wall. No one spoke as they headed deeper into the tunnel. Everyone was afraid to speak at this moment since they could sense the tenseness of the atmosphere. They believed that there was something deeper about this attempted poisoning. A few moments later, they finally arrived at the prison cells where all the criminals were held. The prisoners were surprised to see a large group of people. Some of them cowered in the dark corners of their cells, while a few showed interest in the situation. Soon, the group suddenly heard someone screaming like a pig being slaughtered. "We're here, my lord." Alaric stopped in front of a cell. "I apologize for the unsightly scene. I asked Sir Galliner not to hold back in his interrogation," he uttered. Lucas and the others peered inside the cell and they saw two people tied to a chair. Their bodies were covered in blood. It looked like they had been tortured based on the gruesome wounds on their bodies. At this moment, Galliner, who was holding what seemed to be a tooth extractor, turned around. He stepped out of the cell and greeted Alaric and the Baron. "How was the interrogation?" Alaric asked, looking completely unperturbed by the bloody scene. He had seen much worse things, so this didn't make him feel repulsed. "They were stubborn at first, but they are answering me well now." Galliner's words made everyone look at him with fear. They thought that he was just an honorable elite knight. It turned out that he could be cruel too. They also disclosed the identity of their superior. Galliner muttered. Lucas tapped Alaric's shoulder and stared at Galliner as he asked, "Who is it?" Galliner didn't respond immediately and waited for Alaric's confirmation. Seeing this, Alaric gave him the go signal. This may sound shocking, so please be prepared. Galliner's words made everyone tighten their gazes. It was Sir Charles. They were sent by Sir Charles, and their main goal was to poison you, my lord. Lucas's eyes shook. Meanwhile, the others were dumbfounded. "What?" Warwick exclaimed. "There's no way." Someone found it hard to believe. After all, Charles was Lucas's brother, and he had never shown any signs of disobedience to the Baron. Lucas let out a deep sigh, so it was really him. His voice was filled with complicated emotions. "My lord, we need to bring Sir Charles here immediately," Warwick remarked with an agitated voice. "There's no need." Lucas shook his head. "Alaric already sent someone to get him," the Baron added. Everyone raised their eyebrows. Charles was not an average elite knight. Furthermore, he also had a bunch of loyal knights and warriors serving under him. Capturing him would be difficult. Galliner was here. So who did Alaric send to go after Charles? "There's no need to panic, everyone. I sent someone trustworthy for the job," Alaric said when he saw the looks on their faces. "I'm sorry, my lord, but who might this person be?" Warwick asked with a frown. Alaric smiled and muttered, "Do you know the former commander of Vale's armed guards?" Hearing this, the older warriors thought about one person, while the younger warriors looked confused. Didn't he retire after failing to advance to the Transcendent Knight realm? Warwick hadn't seen this person, but he had heard a few things about him. "That's true, but I helped him advance recently, so I asked him for this favor," Alaric calmly replied. Everyone was stunned. They found it hard to believe, but when they recalled that he possessed a large number of dragon-tail ferns, they realized that it was indeed possible for him to have helped that person advance. Chapter 98. Intruders in Charles's Mansion. Inside a mansion in the intersection of Vale, Charles paced around his room with a grave look on his face. How the hell did Pamela get discovered so soon? Did she make a mistake? What should I do now? If that woman talks, my reputation will be ruined. Damn! He regretted making a rash decision. I shouldn't have sent her the poison. I should have followed the original plan. Damn it! He rubbed his temples with a dark look. He didn't like what was happening. Things were progressing differently than he had anticipated. Lucas might not doubt me, but those warriors. They follow that damn nephew of mine, so it will be difficult to convince them. He rubbed his chin as he pondered deeply on how he should deal with this troublesome issue. If nothing was to be done, his standing in the family would take a huge hit. While he was racking his brains, he suddenly heard a commotion downstairs. Bang! Rumble! Charles raised his eyebrows in surprise. What's going on downstairs? Should I go and take a look? My lord, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. Charles thought for a moment before shaking his head. There's no need. The hired knights will take care of it. Besides, that guy is also down there. They should be able to handle the situation. Recently, he hired the services of a renowned mercenary group in Vale. His intention in hiring them was for his plan to take over Lucas's position. They weren't just an ordinary mercenary group either. This was because their leader was a veteran elite knight. Furthermore, there were 6 knights under him and over 10 knight apprentices. The rest of their members were ordinary warriors who had some experience in battle. It was a big mercenary group consisting of more than 70 members. At this moment, the sounds of fighting seemed to have intensified, and it looked like there weren't just a few intruders. Charles frowned as he felt a sense of foreboding creeping slowly in his heart. Gerard, it seems like our presence is needed downstairs, he muttered. Gerard nodded in agreement. The two immediately headed downstairs to check the situation, and to their astonishment, the intruders were actually Vale's city guards. What is the meaning of this, Sir Anthony? Charles stared deeply at the person leading the city guards. It was Anthony Oliver, the current captain of Vale's city guards. Furthermore, he had already advanced to the elite knight realm. Because of his advancement, he looked a decade younger than he was when he last visited North Pinetown a few months ago. Sir Charles, I didn't expect that you are actually such a conniving man. Anthony glanced at him and shook his head in disappointment. I have no reason to explain myself to you. On account of our friendship, I advise you to surrender. Resistance will only make things worse, he added in a firm tone. Nonsense! Did Lucas pay you to capture me? Or was it that bastard Alaric? Charles was livid with rage. Anthony didn't say anything and just stared at him with a contemptuous smile. Seeing his expression, Charles was pissed. Don't blame me for this, Anthony. You just chose the wrong side, he muttered while sending Gerard a cutthroat gesture. As soon as he received Charles's instruction, Gerard immediately made a move, exposing his level as an elite knight. Anthony's eyes narrowed upon sensing Gerard's overwhelming aura. This guy is actually stronger than the mercenary leader. How dare you look away from me, the mercenary leader named Geoffrey roared as he swung his polearm. Swoosh! Anthony was also keeping an eye on Geoffrey, so he quickly reacted by lifting his halberd. Clang! A dull clang echoed as soon as their weapons clashed. Anthony had only recently advanced, so his mana was weaker compared to Geoffrey. He felt his arms shaking after that collision. Swoosh! A shadow abruptly appeared on his left, not giving him the time to defend. Damn! Anthony hastily moved to the side, narrowly evading the swift dagger that was aimed at his neck. He almost got me. Anthony took a deep breath as he looked at the man holding a pair of daggers. Luckily, that person is here, or this place would have been my graveyard. He chuckled as he thought about the person who led them here. Charles, who was watching the scene, frowned when he saw Anthony's smile. What is he smiling for? He muttered in confusion. Just then, he felt a cold sensation on his neck. HM, don't move if you don't want to die. A nonchalant voice drifted into his ears. Charles looked down and saw a sword hanging over his neck. Who is this person? I didn't even sense his presence. He was alarmed. He always prided himself as one of the strongest in the north, but he was actually unable to detect someone's presence. "Who are you, sir?" he asked, sweat trickling down his face. "Don't try to negotiate with me and don't even think about escaping." A mocking response resonated in his ears. Damn, just who is this person? He was already at the peak of the elite knight realm, but against this person, he felt that there was no chance of resisting. Even though he couldn't see the face of the man behind him, Charles could feel an overwhelming pressure akin to a towering mountain from him. My lord, Gerard finally noticed what was going on, but it was already too late. His lord has been caught, and this person also seemed far more powerful than him. A transcendent knight. Gerard was stunned when he realized the other party's strength. Meanwhile, Anthony immediately took the chance to speak. "Put down your weapons if you don't want your lord to die." The mercenaries under Geoffrey hesitated. Charles was their client, and if something happened to him, they might not receive their payment. "Just do as he says." "Put down your weapons," Charles shouted when he saw them hesitating. He was afraid that the man behind him would truly kill him. Chapter 99, Concessions? Geoffrey clicked his tongue in annoyance. What a spineless coward. "Listen here, Sir Anthony. We were only protecting our client's property earlier, so please allow us to leave. We don't wish to be involved in this matter anymore." Geoffrey didn't want to work with Charles anymore. "Following a spineless bastard like this won't do us any good." Anthony didn't respond immediately. He looked at the old man, William, and asked, "What do you think, Sir William? Should we let them go?" Geoffrey nervously stared at the old man. Feeling everyone's gazes on them, Charles felt ashamed. He didn't forget to glare at Geoffrey, but the latter didn't even glance at him. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you guys go," William muttered while shaking his head. Hearing this, Geoffrey frowned. "Old man, you may be stronger than me, but that doesn't mean I'm afraid of you. If it really comes to that, then we won't hold back anymore." Everyone's gazes tightened upon hearing his words. No one has died on either side as of the moment, so the situation was still salvageable. But if the mercenaries were to fight aggressively, things would end differently. William furrowed his eyebrows. He didn't want unnecessary bloodshed. "Is there no other way?" "Hold on." Anthony opened his mouth, putting the situation to a temporary standstill. Everyone turned their gazes at him, wondering what he was about to say. "Geoffrey, I know that you are only doing this for the money and there's no bad blood between us. Let's all calm down and talk this out." Anthony lowered his halberd to show that he didn't want things to escalate. "I'm listening. Go on." Geoffrey also lowered his polearm. "Thank you." Anthony cleared his throat. His next words would decide the fate of everyone in this mansion, and this weighed heavily on his shoulders. After gathering his composure, he spoke. "Why don't we all take a step back here? We need to bring you to North Pinetown since you are involved with Charles. Please cooperate with us, and I promise you that I will speak up for your group. I'm sure the Silver Swords will understand your situation." Geoffrey's face darkened as he pondered deeply. "Don't even think about betraying me, Geoffrey." Charles could no longer hold back his rage when he saw that Geoffrey was planning to back out. Without his mercenary group, his chances of escaping would be slim. "I paid you, so you must." Noisy, William slapped Charles into unconsciousness, making him unable to finish his words. Everyone was terrified of the old man's power. Even Gerard was afraid to make a move. Charles was an elite knight, but a person like him actually collapsed after one slap to the head. Decide immediately. William stared deeply at Geoffrey, making the latter flinch in trepidation. "Ahem." Geoffrey looked away from the old man and turned his gaze back to Anthony. "Can you guarantee our safety?" he asked hesitantly. He had no choice but to compromise. Forcing their way out would result in heavy casualties, and they might even be branded as criminals. If that happens, they would be forced to leave the city. Anthony nodded and reassured him. "You have my word. As long as you're not too deeply involved with Charles, I will speak up for your group." Geoffrey let out a heavy sigh. He scanned the faces of his subordinates before he helplessly nodded. Fine. We will follow you to North Pine Town. You made a wise decision, my friend. Anthony was relieved. He then signaled his subordinates to lower their weapons. Jeffrey also sent a signal to his men to retract their weapons. Gerard knew that the situation was no longer in their favor, so he could only follow suit. Seeing that the situation had finally been settled, William grabbed the unconscious Charles and said, "Let's go." Under William's lead, Vale's city guards escorted the mercenaries and Charles's subordinates towards North Pine Town. By the time they arrived at the town, it was already evening. At this moment, Alaric was outside the main mansion, anxiously looking at the time limit of the mission details on the cyan screen. Underscore, mission, revenge 2. Mission difficulty, normal. You have gathered enough evidence to destroy your uncle's reputation. Bring him down. Time limit, 6 hours 39 minutes and 21 seconds. Rewards, 400 battle points, 25 EXP, 25 stat points, item upgrade card by 1. Penalty for failure, 50 XP minus 1000 battle points. Underscore, I only have 6 hours left. When are they coming? Just then, he suddenly saw a warrior on horseback rushing towards him with an urgent look. The warrior pulled the reins when he was only a few meters away from Alaric, and as soon as his horse stopped, he jumped down and saluted. "My lord, they are here," he reported with a serious face. "Good." Alaric's eyes lit up upon hearing this. "Did they capture the target?" he asked. The warrior nodded. "Yes, my lord." Alaric breathed a sigh of relief. "Well done, you may leave." He waved his hand. The warrior bowed and jumped back to his mount. "Hiya." Alaric watched the warrior leave with a smile on his face. "I must report this to Dad and Mom." He quickly headed inside the mansion to inform his parents about the situation. A moment later, he arrived at his father's study room. "What happened? Why are you in such a hurry?" Lucas raised an eyebrow when he saw Alaric impatiently walking inside. "Dad, they're here," Alaric responded. Lucas narrowed his eyes. "I see." He stood up, arranged his clothes, and nodded at Alaric's. "Let's go see them." "Yes, my lord." The father and son stepped out of the room. On their way down, Alaric asked, "Where is Mom?" "She went out with Harris to investigate the stores that your uncle had manipulated. I sent Warwick to protect them, so they will be fine," Lucas responded. Alaric could rest easy with his mother taking care of the issues about their stores. She was the expert in this area, not to mention that Harris was with her. Chapter 100, Lucas's Verdict. The father and son duo waited in front of the main mansion. After less than 30 minutes, they finally saw a large group of warriors coming towards them. Those warriors must be the mercenaries that Uncle hired. They looked quite formidable. Alaric frowned when he saw the mercenaries. Good thing Sir William has the support of Vale's city guards. That saved him some trouble of doing things all by himself. At this moment, the old man stopped in front of the Baron and gave him a salute to show his respect. "Greetings, my lord." He then saluted Alaric afterwards. "I have fulfilled your request, my lord." The old man smiled as he pointed at Charles, who had already regained consciousness. The latter seemed to be afraid of the old man, and he even flinched when William glanced at him. "Thank you for accepting my unreasonable request, Sir William." Alaric extended his hand with a grateful smile. The old man grabbed his hand and shook it lightly. "It's my pleasure to help you, my lord. Besides, I owe you a lot for giving me the opportunity to break through. If not for you, I would have probably..." His voice trailed off as if he didn't want to say the rest of it. The two exchanged pleasantries before they went right to the topic. "My lord, I brought these mercenaries to be investigated. Please decide what to do with them," William said as pointed at the mercenaries. "All right. They will have to stay in the estate tonight while we proceed with the investigation." Alaric nodded. He was aware that these men were merely hired muscles, so he was willing to let them go after it had been proven that they were innocent. "My lord, if I may speak." Anthony stepped forward. Alaric glanced at the newly advanced elite knight. What is it, Sir Anthony? Ahem. Anthony cleared his throat before he spoke. I'm sure you're already aware that these men are mercenaries. I can vouch for them. They only followed Charles because of the huge money he promised to give them. I hope you can be lenient with these warriors. He bowed deeply to Alaric after he uttered those words. I understand, Sir Anthony. You can rest assured. As long as they are innocent, we will release them immediately. Alaric tapped the elite knight's shoulder. Thank you, my lord. Anthony was relieved to hear this. Alaric waved his hand. This was just a minor issue to him. Furthermore, he had already thought of letting go of the mercenaries since Charles was the main cause of this problem. He stared at the Baron and asked while pointing at Charles, "What should we do with this criminal, my lord?" Everyone turned their gazes to the Baron. His decision would determine Charles's fate. Would he forgive his brother who had plotted to poison him, or would he eliminate this hidden threat? Lucas, wait. This must be a misunderstanding. You know that I would never do this. Charles squeezed out a smile. He was afraid that Lucas would really send him to death. Looking at his brother, Lucas took a deep breath and sighed. Charles, why did you do it? His voice carried a trace of pain. What do you mean? I don't know any. Enough, Lucas bellowed. An overwhelming aura suddenly pressed on everyone, making them unable to move. Even William, who had recently become a transcendent knight, was shocked by the pressure he exuded. Charles, you weren't talented, so I gave you the best resources to help you become an elite knight. You didn't know anything about business, but I sent you to oversee the family's main shops. I knew that you were secretly manipulating the finances of our businesses, but I turned a blind eye to it. And even after all that I have done for you, you actually thought of poisoning me. His words made Charles lower his head in silence. No one said a word. They just stared at the Baron and his shameless brother with a look of interest. These types of scenes were normal within the nobility. Brothers who had become enemies and even sons turned against their fathers for the sake of their inheritance. This was the hideous side of the political world. Tomorrow, you will be sent to the guillotine. Lucas gave his verdict with an indifferent expression. He took one final look at his brother before he turned around and left. Everyone stared at the Baron's desolate back view. Alaric clicked his tongue. He wanted to torture this man and let him suffer for a long time, but his father had already made the decision. Suddenly, the cyan screen appeared in front of him, telling him that he had completed the mission. Underscore, mission complete. Rewards, 400 battle points, 25 EXP, 25 stat points, item upgrade card by 1. Underscore, Alaric Silvasud 90 XP, 477 500ths. Potential, B. Traits, horseback riding C, swordsmanship SSS, close combat C, archery F, hunting E, tracking E, 6 sense F. Strength, 100. Stamina, 40 plus. Agility, 100. Vitality, 27 plus. Endurance, 42 plus. Mana, 48 plus. Battle points, 3770. Stat points, 33. Requirements for the next advancement, 500 EXP, 100 in all attributes, and 5,000 battle points. Underscore, mission, Revenge 3. Mission difficulty, normal. You have successfully captured Charles. However, your task is not yet done. Make sure that Charles will receive his punishment. Time limit, 23 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds. Rewards, 500 battle points, 30 XP, 30 stat points. Random trait card by 1. Underscore, this should be the last part of this mission. He thought when he saw the next mission popping up. At this moment, Charles, who had been silent, suddenly lifted his head and stared at Alaric with hatred. Alaric, it was because of you. If it weren't for you. William quickly grabbed the man's shoulder, preventing him from taking another step. Uncle, no, Charles. Alaric walked towards him with a calm gaze. My lord, you should stay away from this man. William frowned when he saw him approaching Charles. Alaric raised his hand at the old man, signaling to him that it was fine. He stood in front of his uncle and stared deeply into his eyes. "Charles, if it was up to me, I wouldn't kill you so easily. You see, I lost many people because of you." Killing intent flashed in his eyes, making Charles unconsciously take a step back.